Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian. We recently traveled to Biloxi, Mississippi to cover the International Homeland Defense and Security Summit, where our coverage was sponsored by the Mississippi Development Authority. While we were there, we paid a special visit to the port of Gulfport, where we met with Jonathan Daniels, the Executive Director and CEO of the Mississippi State Port Authority at Gulfport. There, we asked them about the port's history, work, and role as one of the nation's strategic seaports.
Our role in the Department of Defense and Maritime Administration has changed greatly and significantly in the last few years. Recently, we were designated as the 17th strategic port. And if you look at where Gulfport sits geographically, really right in between Brownsville, Texas and Miami, Florida, when Department of Defense and SDDC, when they were evaluating options for their 17th strategic port, if you take a look at what's in Texas with Corpus Christi, and Beaumont and Port Arthur, and then there was not another strategic port when you head to the east until Jacksonville, Florida. So they took a look geographically at what would make sense. And Gulfport, within 400 miles, sits within the largest concentration of Department of Defense facilities anywhere in the nation. So it was very natural for us, and when you consider the Gulf Coast of Mississippi with Keesler Air Force Base, you have Stennis Space Center with NASA, the Naval Construction Battalion, the CB base, and then you head about 60 miles north and you have the nation's second largest joint training facility in Camp Shelby. So it really made sense for the Department of Defense to be able to designate us as a strategic port. We've handled 2 missions thus far, but going into 2018, 2019, they're going to expand our role, and eventually we're going to get into full brigade movements. You take a look as well at the unmanned systems that are being developed by out at Stennis, by the U.S. Navy and by some of the other institutions. We've really relished our role. We're very proud to be able to serve in that role, not only strategically for the movement of our men and women of the armed forces as well as men and materials, but taking a look at the next generation of development for unmanned systems. And that's, we think, something that's really going to be the future not only of the Gulf Coast and the state of Mississippi, but certainly we're proud at the Port of Gulfport to be able to accommodate that. Coming into the fall of this year, we are part of the Southern Strike. Where you're bringing in, that exercise brings in probably about 15 or 20 different countries. It is a air-based strike exercise. We work with Combat Readiness Training Center, part of the activities out at the airport. We work with the 1108th Theater Aviation Maintenance and Support Group. And all of a sudden, October around here gets pretty exciting. As you're seeing a variety of aircraft, you're seeing fixed wing and rotor. And they're engaging in as close to being a live simulator and live fire activities out over the Gulf of Mexico. It is something that begins to spring up as they're bringing in some radar arrays. So we're part of their communications team. And again, it's an expansion. It's not something that typically most ports get involved in, but because of the military presence that we do have in the state of Mississippi and certainly on the Gulf Coast, we're proud to be able to do that. In addition, we do work very closely with the U.S. Navy. Part of their SEAL team exercises occur on the port site. Some Friday or Saturday night during the fall, all of a sudden you'll hear live fire. And that's because they're interdicting and actually getting onto the port, getting onto the docks, getting into the warehouses, and running through very interesting simulations. The port itself has gone through significant change. If you look at the history of the port, we've been known as a banana port. We are the second largest green fruit import facility in the United States, behind Wilmington, Delaware. But we've really changed quite a bit in the last few years. In addition to the containerized inbound fruit, outbound cargoes typically are everything from cotton to paper, craft linerboard, other products heading down into Central America that then end up coming back into the United States as a finished product. We also handle a significant amount of bulk material, ilmenite ore coming from Australia, Africa, South America. That material is utilized for the development of titanium dioxide with a group that we work with called Chemours. And the port's moved out of traditional cargo in the last few years as well. We have great relationships with the University of Southern Mississippi, developing marine research facility capabilities, oceanography, marine engineering. So we've really changed quite a bit in the last several years. Toss into there the direction that we've gone and some of the things, again, that are not traditionally cargo related, such as the oil and gas industry. Behind us is a vessel called the lay vessel North Ocean 105. That's a vessel that's used in subsurface installation of pipelines, whether oil or gas. We're also working with a group out of Houston, C1, and they will develop a compressed gas liquid facility. And then to round it out, we're also in hospitality and tourism. We have Island View Casino on site. And so if you take a look, the Port of Gulfport is really a microcosm of the state of Mississippi's overall economy. Falling under the Department of Homeland Security, the role that we play is certainly administering our facility security plan as mandated by the U.S. Coast Guard, something we go through about every 5 years. We do have USDA presence, Department of Homeland Security presence, everything that's necessary to be able to conduct our operations as a 100% inspection port, whether it's going through radiation portal monitors, going through the X-ray systems, a VACUS system, or whether it's even going into manual and physical evaluation of what's inside the containers. And when you look at where the containers come from, we are a Northern South America and Central America based port. So you look at making sure that there's not only not drugs or any contraband, but also human trafficking. We take our role very seriously. The last project that will be undertaken as part of a $570 million restoration and expansion project will be a couple $1 million specifically going into security cameras, going into enhancing our presence and allowing us the opportunity to better coordinate with the Department of Homeland Security. Foreign military sales allows us the opportunity to work very closely with our allies. A lot of the defense contracting and construction that occurs in the United States isn't consumed by the Department of Defense in the United States or is accommodated and utilized by our forces. So we work with our allies, and many of those defense contractors are building helicopters, building guns and other weapons that end up in a foreign military sales depot. Currently there are two in the United States, one in San Diego and the other in Jacksonville, and the third one is being designated in Gulfport. Because of the space that's available out at the CB base, Naval Air Systems Command will be utilizing some of that space, and they'll marshal the material, be able to run it. It's a sales depot for military hardware. It's essentially what a foreign military sales depot ends up working as. So later this year, we're going to start receiving helicopters. Because we have no air draft restrictions and we do have air ranges available as designated through the Department of Defense, we'll see both the Cobra and eventually the V-22 Osprey landing on the port site. They'll be wrapped up, put in the warehouse up until there's enough material. Vessel will come in. We happen to be moving material into both the Middle East as well as into Asia, 4 countries that currently are some of our allies. The Port of Gulfport has traditionally been a small container port, handling inbound cargoes, perishable cargoes, small amount of outbound activity. As we've gone through our diversification strategy, we've had to work with Department of Homeland Security, work with maritime and security experts to be able to get very proactive in how we identify and how we manage threats. Those threats sometimes are seen, sometimes they're unseen. Some of the seen ones are looking at some type of interdiction onto the port, whether it's from the water or whether it's through our gate structures. But we also have to be aware of some of the cyber threats that are out there. So we are constantly managing and working with the cyber experts, working with the security experts to be able to fully identify what those downstream threats are going to be. We need to be able to look years into the future, be able to install the types of cameras, be able to install the types of intelligence gathering equipment that's necessary for us to be able to identify and also to be able to stop any threats. Security is oftentimes seen as reactive. It's the identification of a threat after it has occurred. Everything from the utilization of various cameras to utilizing facial recognition technology that may be out there and available. We're combing and working with defense contractors, security contractors to make sure that we identify the best equipment and be able to put that into the best application. Sometimes that means changing midstream. In the last few weeks, we've come upon new systems where you utilize a combination of radar and also cameras, and that radar actually coordinates with the cameras, and as soon as there's a threat detection, it moves a camera to determine exactly where that threat is. So we're trying to get as quick as we can, be able to take out any of the potential human error or passivity that can occur from people just staring at screens the entire time. So we're just, again, trying to identify the best technology that's available to us to make sure that we can mitigate any potential risks, not only to the port, but once you get the containers, once you get the equipment on here, we need to make sure that they're properly evaluated before they go into the stream of commerce and go out into the stream in the United States.